just finished the second course of Google's UX design certificate, and so I'm going to do a little bit of a review on that. I definitely had challenges with this one, so stick around if you want to hear about those. And if you're new, welcome to my channel. My name's Karina. I'm currently in the middle of changing my career out of healthcare. I'm an ultrasound tech working 4 days a week, and I want to get into the tech industry. I'm very beginner studying UX design, and I'd love for you to join me on my journey. So the UX design course is broken down into 7 courses, and I just completed course number 2, which is called Start the Design Process, Empathize, Define, and Ideate. Like I mentioned, I work 4 days a week, so I'm lucky to have Fridays off and the weekends free to do a little bit of studying. My goal was to complete this course in 2 weeks, and I did accomplish that. I completed it in a week and 5 days. It took a little bit longer than the first course, which is just like the fundamentals of UX design. I would say for this one, I spent about 16 to 20 hours on it, but I actually did end up going back and redoing a lot of my work, and I'll explain why later on when I go over the challenges that I faced in this course. This course was also broken into 4 weeks of learning material. Week 1 was empathize with users and define pain points. Week 2 was craft user stories. Week 3 was all about defining user problems, and then week 4 was about ideating design solutions. So I don't want to get too in depth about what I learned on every single week. We spent a lot of time on how to empathize with users and how to really define their specific pain points, and then kind of compile that and develop a general problem statement. You have to know what problem you're trying to solve for before you can come up with ideas or design a solution to that problem. Because we're not actually interviewing real people, Google gives you fake user bios. So they create like fake people, and you have to read through all of those profiles. And then we learned how to compile those user profiles into 1 or 2 specific user personas. A user persona is a fake person, but they represent a wide group of people with similar problems and similar backgrounds and similar issues that they're trying to solve. So after you have empathized with your users and defined your problem, then you move on to the ideation phase, and that's where you start brainstorming certain ideas on how you plan to solve for that problem when you go about doing your design. So for that ideation process, a couple examples that Google gave us were competitive audits, and then another one was called Crazy Eights. So we spent a lot of time doing competitive audits. Whatever app that we're trying to design, we're looking for 3 or 4 examples that are already on the market, putting them all into a report, and then comparing all of them across the board. Comparing each aspect of that app is a tedious process, but you have to look at how does it function, how does it look visually, is it solving user problems, what has the app done well, and where are the gaps and opportunities so that you can make sure to put into your design. Next, I want to talk to you about some of the challenges I faced doing this course. I really want to hear from you, so if you've done the Google UX design course, please comment and let me know if you also kind of felt the same way, or maybe this is just a personal experience, but I want to share it with you and see what you think. So the first challenge I had to do with choosing my portfolio project. The Google program gives you this app generator called Sharpen. It's kind of like a spin the wheel. So you spin the wheel and it gives you, or it prompts you to choose from all these different design options. I think everyone is supposed to be designing an app. That's our first portfolio project. But the problem with the Sharpen tool is that some of the ideas are a little bit more specific and some of them are pretty broad. And because I wanted to design something that was a little bit more creative, or something that I felt like aligned with my personality a little bit more, I ended up choosing a project that was a little bit vague and also did not have very many examples in the market, which is hard for a beginner designer because if I get stuck on something, I just don't have very many examples to kind of go off of. And I didn't really know what we would be doing with that app. So that kind of made it hard to choose the right one right off the bat as well. So to give you an example, the first app design that I chose to work on was to design a service summary app for a tailor. That sounds simple enough, but when we went on to do our competitive audits, there's not really that many examples of tailors that I can think of that have service summary apps. Like that's just not something that is going to be easy for me to find and then conduct a whole competitive audit and report on. So I really started to get stuck with that one, but I had already done a lot of the work on the user profiles and user personas and problem statements. So I put a lot of time into that, and I just kind of kept getting stuck because I was like, I don't even know what a tailor service summary app would look like. And then I started to kind of lose sight of if I was trying to design or solve a problem for the tailor, or if I was trying to solve a problem for the client going to the tailor. And I just kind of got completely confused. And that's one of the problems with the courses, is you don't really have like a lot of help or people to reach out to. I did insert this question into a forum so that other people who are taking the course can comment back. Only a couple people got back to me, and they were really helpful, but it was kind of like a week or two later that they had gotten back to me. So by that point, I just decided, I think I chose something a little bit too complex for a beginner designer. So I went all the way back to that sharpen tool and chose a different app that was a lot more simple. And I ended up choosing the prompt to design a shopping app for my favorite sandwich shop. So pretty simple. There's a ton of food apps on the market, and I just felt like it would allow me to stay a little bit more on track. A lot of the examples Google gives you as well have to do with food ordering apps and coffee ordering apps. So this way I could just compare my work a little bit more closely to the work that Google's giving you, which allowed me to just feel like I would know if I was on the right track or not. So my advice there would be to choose something very simple and something that has a lot of examples on the market already. Another challenge that I kind of had, and maybe I'm just a little bit of an overthinker, but it was that all of the user bios that were given are all fake, and all of the personas you're creating are fake. Like nothing is actually real. You're not using real research from interviews that you've conducted or from real people that you've talked to. And so I think one thing is that made this process pretty dry. Like it was boring for me to read through these people and try to compile information on them. And maybe that's just me. I don't like that research aspect of the design process, but I personally felt like this part of the course was just a little bit dry. I also struggled a little bit with the ambiguity of everything. So when I'm designing my problem statement, for example, there's so many different ways that you can go. There's so many different problems that you can kind of solve for. So it's hard to know if you're on the right track. And I think I just needed to learn to accept that there's multiple ways that you can approach one project or one app, multiple ways that could be really good, but it's quite ambiguous. And because you're conducting all of this stuff from fake user personas, then I just struggle to know, like, is this what they're looking for? Am I on the right track? I'm not really sure. Something else that was a little bit hard and challenging was that a lot of this research work is tedious. One example I could provide you with would be on conducting user journeys. So you have to take your fake person that you've created and insert them into this Excel spreadsheet, and then create like a user journey of from start to finish, how would someone order a sandwich from a coffee shop? And then you have to break that journey down into a bunch of steps. So it's just like a lot of kind of tedious point form work that I didn't really particularly enjoy. The competitive audits were also quite tedious. But what makes it even more tedious is that you have to do all of this work twice. So first you do like a practice user journey on a coffee shop app that Google gives you. And then after you've done all of that, you compare your work to Google's work, and you have to determine, was I on the right track or not? And then once you've determined that, then you have to do it all over again for your portfolio project. I just found that doing the research and all of the Excel spreadsheets and kind of competitive audits and reports 2 times was quite a lot, especially because I didn't find the work particularly enjoyable. But having said all of this, I totally understand that research and empathizing with users is a massive part of the design process. So I don't want to undermine it at all. I'm just telling you that this wasn't my particular favorite course to work on. I just found it a little bit boring. And it's hard for me to tell if it was boring just because everything we're doing is fake and we're kind of making all of this information up, or if research is just not my area of interest. And then lastly, what makes this course a little bit challenging is that everything is peer reviewed. So when you submit your work for your portfolio project, you're getting feedback from other amateur designers, or not even designers, just other students in the program. And so some of the answers I got were pretty good, and then some of the answers I got were super weird and I had no idea what they were even telling me. You're left a lot of the time with feeling like you really don't know if you're on the right track. So right now I'm just trying to not overthink everything as much, just do the work, do the practice, and do the best I can. So that is how course number 2 went. Hopefully hopefully that's helpful for you. I wanted to just give you kind of my honest opinion or review of how it went for me personally, but I can imagine there'd be other people going through that course maybe loving that research side of things. Overall, I didn't particularly enjoy course 2, not because Google didn't do a good job of teaching it. I just felt like it was a little bit dry and tedious, and I think I'm just really excited to dive into the actual design work. I did have moments where I worried a little bit if this is like the right career option for me, but I think before I can even judge that, I just need to finish all of the courses 1 through 7 and see how I like it at that point. And I think that there's just so many different job opportunities within this field. Like, I don't necessarily have to be heavy into the research side of things when I go out into the workforce. So just trying to keep that in mind. I did feel a greater sense of accomplishment when I completed course 2 because it was a lot more challenging than course number 1. So by the time I finished all of my projects and everything, I felt proud that I was able to finish it, kind of get it over with so that I can move on to course number 3. I'm really excited to move into course number 3. It's called Build Wireframes and Low Fidelity Prototypes. So now we actually get into some of the designing. I think we're going to learn how to do some sketching and how to put our sketches onto a program called Figma, which is a program that lets you actually build prototypes and designs on the computer. So I'm really excited for that. I'm going to be doing reviews for every single course that I do. So if you are wondering about this Google UX design program or certificate, then definitely follow along. And like I said, if you're in the middle of taking it, or if you are a UX designer already, I would love to know your thoughts and opinions. Keep following along in my journey as I study UX design, and let me know if there's anything else you want me to cover. I'll see you in my next video.